Observe.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 32 of the Observe and Rapport show. I am Kyle Brennan, joined as ever by my beautiful co-host, Keith Sullivan. Keith, how we doing today?
God.
You got a Mickey. You got some wine
You
here.
got a glass of wine.
Classy.
Beer. It's so fitting as well for our personalities.
Smelling the aromas.
And I'm drinking. It's not even good beer. It's just like 7-Eleven
The
beer.
labels peeling off.
yeah. I just noticed you got a guitar stand, whatever holder on the wall.
Yeah.
Beautiful, man. I always prefer them on the wall. The stand on the floor, I hate it.
Yeah. I'm trying to make this office a lot more classy.
Are you still playing the guitar?
Dude, actually, it's funny you bring that up because literally I was hanging that up and Lauren came in and she was like, oh, let me take a look. And then I was like, oh, let me play a few songs. And she like asked me to play one or two songs. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, I know how to play that. It's muscle memory. I got it in my head like years. And I forgot how to play like 2 or 3 songs.
Guitar is not like riding a bike.
Yeah.
Man. It's really not. You got to keep it up.
Because I haven't just had my fingers on the frets for probably 6 months maybe. You lose it pretty quickly.
Well, you know what? It's a very unnatural thing. Like, you know, when you first start learning how to play, you know, like you're bleeding, your fingers, like if you're really getting into it like that. You also have this moment where you go like, is this even possible? Like when you're learning something. And so your body, especially because like playing guitar is not, a life necessity or whatever, like a survival necessity. It's not going to remember how to do that shit. Why would it? It's so difficult, dude. The amount of neurological effort it takes to play something complicated on the guitar on the fretboard is insane. So like even me, and I play quite often, if I'm not keeping up with it, it doesn't stay. It doesn't stay. It won't.
Yeah. It's like any talent. I feel like it's similar to like if you watch someone who's a really good cook or like who knows their way around the kitchen.
Yeah.
They're able to just like cut things a certain way and they know how to hold
That's a dream
things
for me.
and they know their tactic movements with their hands are just fluid.
Yeah.
And like if I tried to like cut an onion, I would just have no idea what to do.
Right.
And I feel like that's sort of similar to someone who knows their way around a guitar versus if you haven't picked it up in a while.
Yeah.
And I can imagine if a cook went 6 months without cooking, like you get rusty. You know?
Even pros will say though, from not playing for like a week or two, they'll go, man, I'm rusty. Like and like John Mayer will say that, or Angus Young will say that, and like they've been playing their whole life or whatever for.
Yeah, with anything. I mean, you hear comedians talk about not going up like for a week doing stand up and like they get rusty. I've been doing jiu-jitsu. If I go a week or two without doing jiu-jitsu, everyone that comes back after 2 weeks off is just like, fuck, I feel like I lost everything. It's crazy.
Well, the only thing that doesn't seem to be affected by that is me with movie lines. That's
the unbelievable.
I just can't.
The fountain
I can't
of
forget 'em.
memory. I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is. We got to talk about it because people have been accusing me of all kinds of things, being autistic or reading from a teleprompter or cue cards, and I just want to clear up a few things because people have asked about the show.
Well, first off, before you even get into that, like for people who might not even know, like you've blown up on Instagram, TikTok, like YouTube, everything.
Facebook's been crazy.
You're like now the movie quote guy.
Yeah.
And
I even had to change my bio to the movie. What did I put? The movie reenactment guy or something. Yeah. Because it's like it just got to a point where like what's the word? Dectupled my followers on TikTok. Like I literally it became a thing and whatever. And like so that happened, but I want to clear up a few things because there have been a lot of comments and people have been asking, if it was a joke at first, I assume, like the thing, you're autistic. This is what was the greatest quote was this level of it was like this is world class autism or something like that. Or something. It was a really funny
top
comment.
tier tism.
It got like a 1,300 likes or whatever, this comment, and like I thought it was funny, and it was funny. But then people were like talking about how they're on the spectrum and like I also have autism. I just want to clear up the smoke. I do not have autism. I don't think I do. I've never been diagnosed with a spectrum disorder. That's the first thing I want to clear up. I am not. It was a joke that not started by me, but like I think that autism is one of the. Shane Gillis was joking around about how you used to be able to make fun of things, and then one by one they're all getting knocked off. Like for whatever reason, like autism is still okay. You can still kind of like.
It's probably getting to the point where you can't.
It's getting there, which is why I didn't engage with it as much because I was like, that's definitely on the line there of like whatever the R word and shit. So, it's just one of those things you can still joke around about. But I've never been diagnosed with a spectrum disorder. That's number one. The second thing is the cue card thing. I am not reading from cue cards. I've never cheated. I did one of them blindfolded. I'll even do it right now just to clear up the smoke. The names from Ted: Brandy, Heather, Channing, Brianna, Amber, Serena, Melody, Dakota, Sierra, Bambi, Crystal, Samantha, Autumn, Ruby, Taylor, Tyra, Tammy, Lauren, Charlene, Chantel, Courtney, Misty, Jenna, Christy, Mindy, Noelle, Shelby, Trina, Reba, Cassandra, Nikki, Kelsey, Shona, Jolene, Erlene, Claudine, Savannah, Casey, Dolly, Kendra, Kylie, Chloe, Devin, Emma, Lou, and fucking Becky.
I'm not like, it's funny because I'm not even impressed because I can verify I've seen you do it since we were kids.
Yeah, and again, I know that this is boring to you because to you it's not. And even like my sisters were like, my friends, I was at a wedding and they were like, I never thought this was weird even. I just thought this was something that you could do, and I never thought like, wow, Keith must be.
Well, I think what is most impressive is the fact that, because I probably know a handful of people who can quote like verbatim maybe like 3 movies that they're just obsessed with, whether it's Happy Gilmore, Billy Madison, and some other like Adam Sandler movie. And like for you, like I knew you could quote Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, like Wayne's World, and like maybe a few others. But I think what the internet is seeing is just like, oh no, you have range across like Tommy Boy and like all these other movies, Pulp Fiction and everything else. That's what's crazy, like impressive, is the fact that, because I've seen you, like I also think you could do, I mentioned this on the other podcast, it's not just movies, like you can quote George Carlin bits that are like 5 minutes long. You can quote a Pink Floyd like monologue at the beginning of a song. Like you've done it on this podcast.
Oh yeah, before. That's right. Yeah, that's right. I forgot all about that. Yeah, the Roger Waters thing. Yeah, and again, when I was doing that, I didn't think it was weird. And you were like, "Did you really just say that?" And I was like, "Yeah." And you were like, "What the fuck?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know. I just know it. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, like I know sonnets, I know Shakespeare, I know all these things. And whatever. So the other thing I wanted to clear up too is like, well, about the autism thing is I wanted to talk about why that might be happening. Is, with the phones now and TikTok and all these swipe apps, right? People are under the impression that people can't like remember anything, and I just wanted to clear it up a little. Like you can remember things, right? Like I know I may be better at it than some people, but like, your brain can actually do like really cool shit if you try. Like those names I just listed, I didn't know them by heart. I had to practice, and I practiced for 3 days, I'd say. And at first I didn't know it, and I thought, of course, I'm never going to be able to do this. It's too many. But then you're like, no, let me just keep going. And then you sleep on it, right? Like Albert Einstein did this trick. I'm sure you know about it. Like when he was stumped on a calculus equation or something, or he had some sum of a remainder of an unbalanced equation, and he couldn't figure out how to make it even, he would often take a nap, right? And he would sleep with steel balls in his hand. And then once he fell asleep to a point of like real deep sleep, he'd drop them and then wake himself up. And often he'd find the solution. Because when you sleep, your brain is solidifying and healing. It's like when you sleep when you're tired, it regenerates your cells. And that's what sleep does for you. That's why it's important, right? So when you sleep, it's interesting. When I was learning the names, the next day after sleeping, I'd wake up and do them the first thing in the morning, and I'd know like 8 more names, like solidify, like perfectly. And I'm like, wow, like that's so fucking cool to me. Like I'm not like a special person. Anyone can do this. You can teach yourself to do shit. Like, and I think that's the addicting part of this for me, is that with the gym, for example, it takes 2 or 3 months before you start to see any results. But with your brain, it can be a few days. You can actually change your neurochemistry or your neural pathways to a point that's like really Like it's accessible so quickly. You can just go, wow, I really learned that in 3 days. And to me, that's the fun part of this. It's like, wow, I didn't know that. Now I do. And now I liken it to like a file on a computer. Like when I just listed those names off, I wasn't thinking. It's just like your brain goes locating file located running program, and then you just go. And it's really fun.
There's some interesting books actually on memory that I've read before. It's funny because I'm much more like, I don't have that good of a memory as you, because I remember like when we were little, me, you, and my brother would like go to see a comedy movie, maybe like Anchorman or something, and it was that time of our lives where like as soon as you saw a movie, you wanted to like quote it with all of your friends.
Yeah.
So like while the three of us are watching it, we're all trying to remember our favorite funny bits, so that once we get out of the movie theater, we can just like laugh and like reenact them to each other. And like me and Tommy would do that, and we'd try to remember it. And I'd try to remember like 5 scenes, and I'd maybe remember like 1. But you would come out and be able to recite like 10 scenes almost by heart with the same like intonation, like the gestures and everything.
Sure.
So that was always impressive. But the two books that I was thinking about was one is called The Art of Learning by Josh Waitzkin, he was the influence for the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer. He was like a chess prodigy when he was like 5 years old. Oh. This guy, Josh Waitzkin, is a real person. He's obviously a chess prodigy. He's also like a Tai Chi push hands champion, a jiu-jitsu black belt, and like a surf like champion, like foil surfing, whatever that's called. And he's basically deconstructed how you learn things, where he would learn essentially, if he was taking on any new subject, he would start at the end, kind of like a Tarantino movie. Oh. He would start to like, so for chess, for example, if he wanted to teach a kid who'd never played chess before how to learn, he would start with only like the queen and the king on the board. So it's like, how do you learn the end game first, how to close the game out, and then we'll work our way backwards. Similar to like, I think Tiger Woods' dad, taught him like from the green backwards. It's like putt first, chip, then irons, then like the driver.
Right. Yeah.
And that's how he deconstructed it, which is interesting, but I've never actually tried it or applied it. The one time,
I like that.
The one area I actually used like that sort of hack was for when I was memorizing my best man speech at my brother's wedding, which I wrote out, let's say.
Which you nailed, by the way.
Thank you. It took a lot of rehearsing and practicing. But what I did was I wrote out, let's say, 10 paragraphs. And rather than try to like memorize every word that I wrote down, I basically took an index card and I wrote the first word of every paragraph and the last word of every paragraph.
Okay.
So like the first word might have been hello. The last word of the paragraph might have been love.
Right.
So I didn't need to memorize. I just needed to remember, how do I get from hello to love?
So what you're doing there, from what I know in my own, I've never read anything about this because I've always been like, I don't know, I found my way with it. By the way, it's funny you talk about like your wedding speech. Today my wife was like, do you remember your vows? And
tell me you did.
I did, and I remembered them.
I remember you brought up some Greek.
Yeah, the Greek myth of the original, that people were originally born with 4 arms, 4 legs.
You don't have to go into
2 stomachs, 2 hearts, 2 brains, whatever. Anyway, it's a whole thing.
You turn to 1. Let me guess.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, what happens is the gods feared human beings' power, and so they split them in 2, and so so human beings would be too busy searching for their other half their whole life instead of trying to overtake Mount Olympus. Ooh. And I said to Liz, I feel like you're my other half. And but the thing is I wrote that morning, and I didn't work on my vows at all until that morning, and I didn't read them off paper. I memorized them on a walk, which is another thing people do. Nietzsche did that, for example. And I still remember them. So like I have to say I do have a good memory.
You do,
obviously.
So my question to you is, the other book I was going to mention is called you talked about Einstein. The book is called Moonwalking with Einstein. And this journalist basically went to the world. There is a world memory championship
Really?
Yeah, there's like so I wonder if you would actually be good at this. There's
probably people out there, dude. Forget it.
There is like a world championship of memory where these guys can like, you know, they're given, you know, 75 words and they have to memorize them in like less than 5 minutes or something like that. And then
I gotta sleep in between.
But the book was okay, but the overall gist of it, and I'm sure you've heard of this, is that like apparently the key to one of the keys to memorization was that from an evolutionary standpoint, we are very good at spatial awareness because as hunter-gatherers, we had to remember the route that we took to a fresh water source or where we killed an animal to go get it or how to collect berries. We had to remember, you know, the shape of a certain tree bark, right? So we're very good spatially at remembering things because of that. And they said the key to memorizing like a list of 75 words, let's say, is to put those 75 words or story or phrases into an imaginary house. So imagine you're walking into your house, right? You put the key in the door, you open the door, and you see the first word. Then you put your keys down on the like nightstand, and that's where you see the second word. And then you go through your like normal routine of what you would do in your house, and you weave the words or the phrases to memorize in the house. So that way, when you have to recite it back, you're walking through your house and associating the lamp with that phrase or something like that. Whatever. Yeah.
Well, what I was going to say before I brought up the vows was what you were doing with the working backwards thing with your speech was you're doing word association. And even when I was learning those names, to me, what my brain does is I know that, for example, Channing comes before Brianna, right? So I would create this link in my head that Channing equals Brianna. So like you're before it. Your mouth is ready then because you know speaking that quickly. That's the other thing is people in the comments are like, it's not only that he's saying this with like he's memorizing this, but his articulation is right, his intonation is correct. He's also speaking in the same tonality of the person. So like what all that is like your mouth has to be ready is my point. Your mouth has to be ready. So like those words, they're like when I was still learning it, I knew that Channing meant Brianna. So like, and also Heather means Channing. So like it's a weird thing that what you're kind of like you said spatially, you're kind of guiding yourself on the path with this speech. You're taking yourself down a road, and one step leads to the next. But you got to put one foot. You can't put one foot in front of the. You got to put one foot in front of the other. Right. That's what I was. Sorry. It's not even an expression. It's just how to walk. But like, you have to put one foot in front of the other. So Channing takes me to Brianna.
Right.
Brianna takes me to whatever. And and that's truly, I think, how memory works. If you're memorizing a speech or whatever, you have to set it up so that you're taking yourself on a journey through this thing instead of just like one. It's like when you're reading, when you're speed reading, you're not reading like, every single word necessarily. Your eyes are guiding you along the line, and you're gathering the information as you go.
Right. It's like, have you ever seen that paragraph where every word is actually spelled wrong?
Right.
But your brain can just like sort of remove the errors.
Right. And I don't know if that's a good analogy or whatever, but like my point is that like your brain and your mouth, like they have this relationship where they one needs to be before the other. And like my friend Buddy, I remember one of my favorite memories of out in the Hamptons was when the Eminem show came out, and we were out at your summer house, and again, you and Tommy were learning all the lyrics. Like that was the big thing at the time. Was like, can we get every lyric down from this Eminem song?
Still got it.
Yeah, and I still know. I could do White America right now. I could do the whole song. I could do the whole thing. But Tommy was learning the real Slim Shady, I believe, and he couldn't get this one part down, and I had to explain to him. Like I did it slowly, and he was like, so it's this. I don't remember exactly, but he was like, so it's this, and then this, right? And I was like, yeah, and this and that. So my friend was like, you got to do Rap God on TikTok. That one part, some of them, you assuming I'm a human, what I got to do to get a few to be human, that part, whatever. I'm going to do it for sure, because I know it already. But yeah, like, so lyrics and all that, I think that what the rappers do is the same thing. Like it's what they call it flow. It's a flow. He's got flow, they say. He's not trying. It's just this relationship. It's this like healthy relationship between your brain and your mouth, and that's what makes it sound good. And because you can tell if someone's trying. That's why I was a little upset about the cue card comments. I'm like, you can tell when someone's reading from a teleprompter.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm not. Like, I know it. Anyway.
That's why I respect people so much more who can do speeches, for example, like on the fly. Yeah. Like, and not to knock anyone who like reads from something, but to me it's less like special. Like they didn't go through the process of like trying to, remember it. And that's also just something I value a lot. I think it's very cool to remember a speech. Well,
it shows that you put effort into this thing, and that's another thing is that it's this unspoken respect that you have for the audience. It's this unspoken respect that you have for the craft of speech giving and all of that. Like, I would never be cheap like that and read from a fucking cue card. Like, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
That's disgusting. Because, like, first of all, what am I even doing anyway? It's not like I'm saving the fucking world out there. I'm doing a scene. And, like, to make it cheap on top of that would be so gross.
To me, though, what's also interesting about your ability to hold on to it for, like, years.
That's the weird part.
Yeah, because that we talked about, like, I've been playing guitar since I was in 7th grade. And I can still play songs to this day. But if I go 6 months without doing it, it's rusty. I have to like kind of relearn it again. And I remember in school, I was very good at memorizing for a test like the night before. I could like whatever I needed to know, I could not study. And then the night before, I would study it all and remember it, do the test, get like a 90 or whatever on it, good enough. And then it would immediately leave my brain. Forever. And I feel like sometimes when it's things that aren't really important to me, I'm good at actually doing the memorization, like you said, the 3 days where I can like truly know every single word of something. And I've had to memorize tons of sonnets and other speeches and stuff that I've given throughout my lifetime, but I forget it after like a week. That's what's interesting is that you keep those, you maintain those grooves in
even
your head.
Sonnets, like I'm whatever, maybe I'll do one later when I get a little more drunk, but like I haven't read a sonnet in months and I still know them. It's weird. It is weird. Like, why do I retain the information? I don't know, but I do, and I don't know. And another thing I wanted to clear up too is that a big comment is that how are you getting the timing down? And I've had to talk about how I'm a drummer because that does actually help. Yeah. Like, it's rhythmic. It's rhythm at the end of the day. And but I want to be clear that I am, and this is obvious in the video. You can see that I'm shifting here and there to make sure because look, here's the thing. When this happened, this was you and I doing a show, and you said, "Can you do this scene?" And I said, "Yeah." And I just had the idea while editing, just to give people reference, I put the scene underneath it. But the scene, even if you started at the same time of the first word that I say, just through the error of a millisecond of breath or a millisecond of this and that, it doesn't sync up perfectly, right? And there's also editing done on the movie side that makes it unnatural. Like, you don't realize it while watching, but like, I'm learning a scene from The Matrix right now, the architect speech at the end of Matrix 3, which is like harder than those names I just listed. But there are a lot of unnatural lengths of breaths between him talking that no one would ever take. So those things happen in movies, and therefore you could never reenact it perfectly in real life. So I just want to be clear that if you watch the movies, you're even seeing the clip shift a millisecond or two, just to sync up with my voice, because otherwise it's audibly unpleasant. It just sounds like gibberish because it's two people talking over each other. So like, I'm not gonna lie, it is pretty goddamn good. Like, I don't have to do much, which is why I come out with one every day. It's I can just flip it over in half an hour. But let's just be clear. It's not like I'm just, and if the movie's on, I can do it actually perfect.
Yeah. But, well, if you were able to do it perfectly, then I would maybe.
That's autism.
That would be autism.
That's autism.
Yeah, that's if you actually had the timing to the millisecond perfectly, that would be
so
autism.
That's where that autism comment probably comes from.
I think you just have a very particular interest in memorizing those things, and therefore you're good at it. It's like, I've always said this, like, I think anyone you meet probably has some skill or talent that is incomprehensible to you.
It's very true.
You're like, how are you so good at this random ass thing? Anyone you meet probably has some skill that you couldn't imagine understanding how they could have learned that. And I think for you, that's just what yours is.
Yeah.
My favorite comment though, someone was like, you could have used this talent to learn Chinese.
Yeah. No, literally. I could have been translating. And I know the Korean scene from Yes Man, just to prove that guy's point.
And the fact, honestly, as I kept rewatching it, the fact that you nailed the backwards part of the Jim Carrey.
Because like that's a whole other length of like, I don't know. I mean, like, whatever. Yeah. I don't know.
Do you think that
was literally completely unreheared? Like I didn't even have to
I know.
try.
I saw that.
Like,
do you think that you were a rhythmic person? I have my own belief about it. Do you think you were a rhythmic person before you became a drummer, or drumming made you a rhythmic person?
Well, I'll tell you this. When I started playing the drums, the second I saw my music teacher hit a snare drum, Kyle, I literally swear that it was as if, like, that people talk about that light switch went on or whatever, right? And like that was that moment for me. Like, I don't know if I was a rhythmic person before then. It was 4th grade or so. But once that happened, because he said to me, "Oh my God, this is like therapy right now. Wait till you hear this. I haven't thought about this, dude."
Did you take lessons at Catalano's?
Yes.
Yeah, me and you both. Right?
Yes. But my music teacher, it was so interesting because this is actually kind of a good story. My music teacher, original, was this Polish woman. She was a twat, and she wasn't very kind to us. But she wasn't nice, and she didn't. All she made us do was do re mi fa sol la ti do, up and down, and like she would yell at kids. She was a bad person, from what I could tell. I don't know. Anyway, she was out one day sick, and this guy, Mr. Vasquez, I'll never forget his name.
Is he bald guy?
No, that's Joe Vivaro, who taught me how to play the drums. I'm talking about in JLC.
Oh, got
This is in music class, like regular day, regular Wednesday. And she was out, and Mr. Vasquez came in. He was the band teacher. And I walk into music class thinking, whatever, it's just another fucking day, do re mi, and all the instruments are out. The guitar, the cello, the violins, the drums, everything. And we're all like, wow, music. Like, wow, who would have thunk we're going to play music in music class, So he's going around. He's so passionate. He's showing everybody how to do this and that. Comes up to me. I just happen to be standing next to a snare drum. And he goes, "Did you know that drumming is a language?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, watch." And he took a pair of drumsticks and he went to the snare drum and he said, "Watch. For example, I could tell you that I like blueberry pie." And then he went, "Ka, ka, 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 ka." And I was like, dude, I have chills right now. That moment I went, holy shit. Like, you're a kid, To me, that was like, and he was like, "Watch, I like blueberry pie. Ka, 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 ka." And then I was doing it with him, and I was like, it's the same thing. And then I realized that, like, talking has a rhythm. And I guess, and then I went, and you can ask my mom. The day she picked me up that day, and I was like, "I want a drum set. You have to get me a drum set." I was obsessed. I was so excited for the first time in my life about something, passionate, really passionate about that. And he changed my life that day. Like, if that never happened to me, dude, forget it. I'd probably be in jail or something. Like, just the ripple of that experience, And so I don't know if I was a rhythmic person before that, but I know from that day forward, I knew that talking is rhythm and drumming is rhythm, and it's really this. It's a language. You're talking.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, I think it's all interconnected. I think
it is.
I think your rhythmic ability and your knowledge of it ties into your ability to memorize quotes and do scenes like this.
Agreed.
And I think my theory, I think you were a rhythmic person who happened to be introduced to drums.
Maybe.
That's what I think.
I don't know.
I think you were already from a young age, because you started playing drums when you were like 12?
I was 10.
10? I think you were already memorizing scenes and like doing impressions, and you had this innate ability to understand like the different like levels of volume and like the cadence of someone's voice, and I think you were able to always do that. And I think drums just like was that light switch of like that's what I've been.
There's the vessel.
Yeah, that's the thing that I need to tap into and like plug my like brain into, and then that just tapped.
There was a rapper addicted to crack and meth on Softwood Underbelly recently, and he performed the greatest, and I mean it, the greatest performance of rap I've ever seen in my life on the show. And it closes out the episode. And one of the lines that he says is, and it's funny that I even remember it, right? Because I only watched it a few days ago and I only watched it one time. But he said, your favorite rapper is the greatest. I'm sorry. He said, your favorite rapper is the greatest and I'm gifted. There's a difference. Right. And I think that's what you're talking about. Like, you can be good at something, but to be gifted, meaning that you were born with this thing. Everyone's born with an innate ability to do something, right? And whether it's being attractive or being, I don't know, being able to jump high or whatever it is, like, yeah, I assume that you're right, that I do have a rhythmic tendency in my approach to life or whatever. I don't know, but being good and being gifted is not the same thing. I knew this guy. I used to work at Guitar Center, and there was this gentleman who would come in all the time. He was this morbidly obese black guy, and he would sit at the keyboard and play, just what you could only call God's music. Like, he would just play incredible virtuosic performances of gospel music in front of and whenever he played, people would come crowd around him, like customers, employees, everybody, and we'd all just stare at him in silence and just watch and enjoy, and we'd always give him these compliments. You're so amazing, my God, you're unbelievable. Why aren't you on the? And he would just say, I'm just gifted. God gave me a gift. God gave me a gift. I don't know what to tell you.
It's wild.
I'm blessed. God is good. God gave me a gift. And like, and that's all. He would never say, "Oh, I started at this age." He would just say, I was given a gift, and God is good." And whatever. I just think that there is something to what you're saying. You're born with things,
Yeah, I think so. Like, I've always thought, for myself, I noticed this when I studied abroad, that I've never learned a foreign language. I took Spanish and stuff in high school and everything. I was always able to like read it, but never I could never say it conversationally because I never was immersed in it, right?
Right.
But I remember when I studied abroad and I would go to these different countries. I was studying abroad in Denmark and hearing Danish. I'd go to Germany, hear German, go to Spain, hear Spanish. And I am someone who also, I think, has a musical ear. I wouldn't say I'm rhythmic in the same sense of you, but I have a very musical ear where like a lot of the guitar that I learned was just by listening to a song and then figuring out how to play it. Like, I can't read music, but I can listen to a song and play it back for you if I take enough time. And I think when I was in these foreign countries, hearing the languages and hearing how they spoke, to me, it sounded very much like learning music by ear. Right. And I felt like, I know this sounds like weird because I can't speak a second language, but I was like, oh, I know for a fact, like with full 100% confidence, I was like, if I lived in Spain for 6 months, I would be fluent. Mm-hmm. Like, I just knew it. I was like, I just know how my brain works and how I learn things and the pattern recognition that I can't learn it by you teaching it to me. Like, just like I can't learn guitar by you trying to teach me how to read sheet music. Right. But if you immerse me in that culture, like if I listen to a song and immerse myself in it, I can learn it. And if I immerse myself in Spain, I can learn the language, which maybe that's normal. But to me, I feel like that's, I don't know if it's a gift, but I feel like I need to be put in that environment in order for it to switch on.
Yeah. So yeah, man, that's the reality of it. I mean, like, I'm very happy about it. I can't wait to keep doing it because you know what? It not only is it doing well, but people really like it. Like, people actually enjoy watching this for some reason. And I never thought that would be something people would want to see. And even people in the comments are like, why do I want to watch this? Like,
yeah,
because like there is something auditorially, is that the right way to say that? Auditorial. Yeah. There's something satisfactory about it when you watch something happen just that right way, with every word and every tone accounted for. It's satisfying. It's like watching all of the, grains of sand fall into a pile on like a ASMR
It's
page
competency
or something.
porn. That's what we talk about all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's competency.
You don't know why you're watching it, but you can't look away at the same time.
So I'm very happy about it, and I hope people listen to the show as well, because we talk about things that like this, like that talk. We try to delve into why these things happen and where they can go and whatever. And we also do movie quotes if you want. It started here.
Yeah.
I may as well just keep it going.
That's true.
First off, a lion swimming in the ocean? Lions don't like water. If you placed it near a river or some sort of fresh water source, that makes sense. But you find yourself in the ocean, 20-foot waves, I'm assuming it's off the coast of South Africa, coming up against a full-grown 800-pound tuna with his 20 or 30 friends, you lose that battle. You lose that battle 9 times out of 10. And guess what? You've wandered into our school of tuna, and we now have a taste of lion. We've talked to ourselves. We've communicated and said, you know what? Lion tastes good. Let's go get some more lion. We've developed a system to establish a beachhead and aggressively hunt you and your family. And we will corner your pride and your children and how are you going to do that? We will construct a series of breathing apparatus with kelp. We'll be able to trap certain amounts of oxygen. It's not going to be days at a time, but an hour 45, no problem. That should give us enough time to figure out where you live, go back to the sea, get more oxygen, and then stalk you. You just lost at your own game. You are outgunned and outmanned. Did that go the way you thought it was going to go? Nope. And that's that.
Smash computer.
Right. Well, no. He throws coffee in his lap.
Ah.
See, you're not thinking, Kyle.
God damn.
The smash computer thing is when he gets frustrated from sitting there all day.
Are
you a big man? Huh?
Put my big boy pants on.
Are you looking at the boy? You say, I'm putting my big boy pants. Oh, look, I'm wearing a belt. I got big boy pants on. You're scaring the shit out of me, man. Stop it.
One of my favorite scene that me and Tommy quote all the time is, it's a subtle one. So if someone gets the reference like in real time at a party or something, I'm so happy. But the scene in the very beginning with The Rock and Samuel L. Jackson, they're on top of the roof and the guy escapes through like the rappelling system, and Hero by Foo Fighters comes on and they just go, aim for the bushes. they pound each other, fall to their death.
You think of what I'm thinking?
Yeah. And then the next scene, what were they thinking? Jumping. It wasn't even an awning.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. LRB, Little River Band.
Got 6 discs in here.
Brilliant movie. Again, for whatever reason, there's so many one-liners. How great was Jersey Boys? It's not great. It's fantastic. You totally undersold it. The pageantry, the lights. Wow,
what a musical.
Like, he's there to arrest him. That's what they're like. It's such a brilliant movie. There's so many. I can't believe it didn't come up in comments.
Can we talk about the book I just read?
Yes, let's get off this. We've been on it for an hour, so.
So I just read a crazy book my coworker recommended to me called Ultra Processed People. It's by Chris Van Tulleken. And the book it's one of those, like, you don't really come across books that often that like completely like earthquake your worldview on something. This book, it's exactly what it sounds like. Ultra processed people, essentially about the ultra processed food that now makes up 60 to 80% of the average American's diet. And so his point is that it's effectively impossible to avoid ultra processed foods. So
I made pasta tonight, right?
Yeah.
There's fluoride in the water. That pasta is not from Italy. Like, what am I going to do, Kyle?
So he basically defines ultra processed foods as anything that is wrapped in plastic and has an ingredient listed in the label that you would not find in a domestic kitchen from the 1930s, basically, right?
So everything.
So pretty much everything.
Pretty
and that includes like healthy salad dressing, like healthy oat milk, like pretty much everything. Even like a bag of almonds that you get that's like slightly roasted.
Now, is that really just for preservative reasons?
It's for a number of reasons. So what I was getting to, the point that I love about the book is that he doesn't attack anyone. He doesn't moralize or like say what you should be doing or that you shouldn't be eating these foods and here's what you should be eating. He's really just laying out all the facts and like letting you sort of come to your own conclusion, which is very simple to do. And that's why I like this book so much, because the way it's written is really, it's not gimmicky in any way, which I love. So my coworker Eric recommended this book. He was like, dude, he's like, I just listened to the audiobook. He's like, you'll never look at food the same again. So it doesn't just attack or talk about the food, but some of the key things that I learned from it is like, number one, the obvious stuff. We basically know that ultra processed foods are causing a pandemic of diet related diseases, right? Obesity, heart disease, diabetes, dental issues, like Alzheimer's, you name it.
I went to the dentist today, by the way.
Good?
Bro, he literally, I got a compliment. He goes, you floss.
Do you floss?
I do.
Dude, when you tell
You
a
gotta
dentist
floss.
when you tell a dentist you floss and you're not lying.
And by the way, as an adult, don't forget where you were going, but flossing it's a game changer.
It totally is. Dude, so I didn't know this until I was like maybe in my 20s. I had cavities every single time I went to the dentist. Did you really? Every time. From the time I was like 4 years old. In my life, I've probably had 30 plus cavities. Serious. So I didn't know that. I did not know this.
30?
30.
God bless you.
Did not know this until my 20s when I started like telling people. I'm like, yeah, I had tons of cavities. And other people are like, oh, I've never had one.
Yeah, I know.
And
my
I'm
wife's like that. I never had a cavity.
I'm like, what do you mean?
What do you mean you've never
like, everyone has a cavity. Like, what are you talking about? I didn't realize like having more than like 5 cavities is abnormal.
No, I had 8 one time. One time I went to the dentist, I had 8 cavities. That's why you can see like there's all this shit in my teeth.
All right, so
silver. But anywho,
I'll get to dental stuff because that part is actually crazy. So what's interesting is we think, okay, we'll cut these ultra processed foods out of our lives, right? We'll be fine. We'll be totally fine. But so what he says is a lot of these brands come out with so-called healthy alternatives to foods, whatever it is. And they market it to you as such. It's low fat, it's low sugar, it's high protein, it's, less additives, whatever it might be. And we think a lot of times because we think about protein, fats, and carbohydrates, right? Those are like the 3 main staples of nutrition or nutrients that we need. And we think, well, as long as I'm getting the proper macronutrients of protein, fat, and carbohydrates, and the sources aren't crazy unhealthy, as long as I'm tracking those, I should be fine, right? But this totally dispels that myth. It's actually where it comes from and like the way that you ingest it makes all the difference. So like if you put apples to apples, actually literally he does this. He has someone eat an apple, then he has that same person eat an apple that was put into a blender and turned into a juice, so it wasn't modified at all. Right. And then he has another apple that's like put into a smoothie. And the body reacts 3 completely different ways to all of those. So the ingestion method and what you actually consume makes a gigantic difference in the vitamins that you're consuming, the supplements that are all going into your body, the nutrients, the way that your body breaks down sugars. All of that is actually really important. So if you have a apple juice like blended up, your blood sugar spikes like crazy, and then you're gonna have a huge crash. Whereas if you just eat an apple and you eat the skin, you're getting all of those, like the bacteria for your microbiome, all that stuff, and your body knows to digest it slowly and process it slowly, and it knows where to go. One of the most interesting parts of the book, he talks about babies. And we have a baby on the way, so I found this super interesting, which was at about like, you might know this better than I do, but about like the 6 to 8 month mark, you take your baby off of breastfeeding, you start to feed them real food. Now, doctors have like the foods that they prescribe, right? Or like the health recommendations of what foods you should start feeding your baby. And it's a list that probably innocuously seems pretty healthy to you. So he did an experiment where he took the doctor recommended diet and fed that to babies. And then he took another diet, which was full of just the most nutritional food. So that was ground beef, which you wouldn't expect a 7-month-old baby to eat, like organs, so like liver, heart, stuff like that, carrots, like really hard to chew food, and all these sorts of very healthy foods that you would get from like a farm, and kind of looked at the results. And the babies who are on the like healthier food side, they basically just laid out the food on like a table and let the baby decide. And what they found was similar to any other mammal. So like a cow knows the nutrients it needs. A baby cow, a calf, it knows that it needs zinc or it needs iron, and it will go and find that and like feed itself that food. Humans are the same exact way. A baby knew when it needed salt, and it would look at the table salt on the table and put it in its mouth, and it would like make the face because it's gross to just eat salt, but it knew it needed it, so it would keep eating it. And the baby knew when to stop eating, when it was full. It would eat carrots, and eventually it came to crave eating carrots and eating celery and eating beef and liver and all these stuff. So the conclusion was like, humans, we are adapted to know what we need. And what these ultra processed foods do by adding all these additives and manufacturing like these, it's not even food, it's chemically processed edible substance, and our body doesn't know what to do with it. So we're just like throwing it into our body, but our body doesn't even recognize it as like nutrients or proper like fuel.
Kyle.
So it just tells us like, hey, you just ate a whole can of Pringles, but we're waiting for the nutrients. There's like, I could go down the rabbit hole of like all the different areas that he talks about. Like the dental part of it was that the fact that like all these foods they break them down. So they're basically taking, this was the craziest fact. The first chemically processed food was during World War II. And they took, I might be butchering this a little bit, but they took basically the excess oil from fuel that they were, so in England, they needed to make more fuel for World War II. But they weren't getting enough. They didn't have any oil there. Or Germany, they didn't have enough oil in Germany to actually produce. So they needed to find ways to manufacture fuel in some other ways. So they came up with this process to manufacture fuel that they could use in their tanks and their trucks and everything like that. And the excess oil that came from that, the scientists accidentally found out that it tasted good. Like he wiped his mouth one night and he was like, why is that? He's like, that tastes pretty good. They started making edible oil from that could be used in cooking for like margarine and butter. And they literally called it coal butter because it was made from coal effectively. And that was the first processed food.
Are there macronutrients in that oil? Like you
said, technically, yeah.
There's
there's fat, I guess,
right.
But because it's not, the source matters, right? Like think about a plant. If it's a plant is being raised in like dense soil with a diverse like biome of bugs and worms and all that stuff, it's going to grow naturally. But if you pour chemicals from some Monsanto manufactured thing, that plant's never seen that before. So it might react in a way that shows that it's healthy, quote unquote, but it's going to have adverse effects on its growth and how it adapts in the environment that you can't really predict. And that's essentially what's happening to humans now with these ultra-processed foods, which is 60 to 80% of our diets for the average American or British person. And the other crazy part of it, he talks about the marketing aspect, which is the fact that it's forced down our throats from a young age. So whether it's cereals that are marketed to kids, where like Fruit Loops, Lucky Charms, all that stuff, Coca-Cola, like you see Coca-Cola everywhere you go. Even if you're a teenager, you open an app, like you're getting a Coca-Cola or McDonald's coupon or something. The other one too, which you know from listening to Casey and Callie Means, the majority, like a crazy amount,
98%
of studies that come out that show that exercise will reduce obesity and that willpower is the cure to obesity, not the food that you're eating. If you go deep, they're all funded in some part by Coca-Cola, Dannon, Kraft Heinz, all of these big food manufacturers.
They know you will never will yourself out of an ad.
Like every single one,
right.
All the college, they all get their grants from these major food companies. So they're all essentially just like persuading or like, strong-arming these researchers to not publish the findings that are actually factual. So there's just all these different, essentially what the main point or hypothesis of the book is that obesity is not, it's not that you're eating too much sugar. It's not that you don't have willpower. It's not that you're not exercising enough. It's that we're put in a system that is literally almost impossible to purposely navigate and avoid, like how we're being poisoned at every level. And it's not just the McDonald's and the Doritos and the obvious ones. It's the salad dressings. It's the oat milks that we're drinking. It's the protein bars. It's all the things that are marketed to us as healthy, but they're completely lying about the nutritional facts and the makeup of this. And it's just very, unless you do your own research and you understand this stuff, you have no idea how much you're being duped by all these different companies and how much of a disadvantage you're at. Because not only is this food slowly killing us, it's also the most accessible, the cheapest, and the most delicious. So it's like, how do you win? How do you win against that battle? Like, sure, you want to get grass-fed beef and pasture-raised eggs, but good luck fucking paying. Your grocery bill is going to be $200 when you at the end when you fill up your cart. Versus if you buy ultra-processed foods, it's going to be $80. You know, so it's like, for me, the easiest like metaphor is just to think of ourselves like plants in a garden, and it's like, you want if you want a plant to grow, you want it in like dense, healthy soil. But put that same plant in Mott's applesauce. Like, what do you expect to happen?
No, that's exactly
to me. That's just like the easiest metaphor. It's like you don't need. Yeah, I don't need to tell you the science behind it.
It's like those veggie stick chips that they come in the bag.
Oh my god!
And it's like veggie. It's like People eat. Dude, I work with a guy. He eats them every day. He thinks that he's on a diet, and I'm like, bro, there's like hydrogenated vegetable oil in every single one of those. Like,
the interesting line that I highlighted in the book was, he was like, the author says, learning all of this made it way less enjoyable to eat these foods, but still just as desirable. He's like, like an Oreo is still fucking delicious.
Delicious.
He goes, but when you know the process that went into making an Oreo, you're just like, oh fuck, how can I enjoy this? Like, this is disgusting. Take a Cliff Bar. You look at a Cliff Bar, you're like, that guy on the logo is climbing a mountain.
Right.
He needs protein. He needs sustenance.
They taste like shit anyway.
It's healthy. It's granola. It's protein. It's all these things. Dude, that shit is so unhealthy with the emulsifiers, the hydrogenated oil, and all that stuff. That's just fooling you. I sometimes like hate to preach to people. But when I find an opportunity,
we know we're right though.
Yeah, when I find out, it's like, sucks, so I do jujitsu every morning, and like guys have like, we all have injuries and stuff, like knee problems, and I always recommend knees over toes, right? Because I healed my knees that way. And the other day I was telling these guys, because they're all big readers too. Jiu-jitsu is a very nerdy sport. It's a lot of like-minded readers and nerds.
People think it's meatheads.
So I was telling them about this book, Ultra Processed People, and one guy was like, yeah, you know, it's like, I do jiu-jitsu in the morning, but like in the morning I really just have like a bagel or a muffin. And I was just like, dude,
what are you doing?
I was like, are you kidding me? I was
like,
like,
what I have for breakfast every morning? What? 2 hard-boiled eggs and a yogurt. That's it.
Beautiful.
No bread.
You know what I have for breakfast in the morning? Nothing. Actually, though, I don't eat.
Bless you, man.
My first meal is at like 1:00, and I have 3 eggs over ground beef with salt and avocado. I'm full till 4:00. I'll have a few dates, a banana, maybe some yogurt, berries, and then I'll eat dinner, which is like chicken and potatoes.
Yeah.
And on that note,
we'll see you next week, everybody, for episode 33. Sorry, I don't need to do the outro.
Yeah.
But
cheers.
Yeah. Cheers. God bless everything. And just knock it off with the Doritos. No big deal.
Go out and vote.
Yeah. Oh, or don't. Just, hey.
If you're not smart, don't vote.
It's up to you in the end. Okay? Be a good person. Treat people well. And
read good books.
Love.
Watch good movies.
Yeah.
Quote them all the time.
Yeah, and quote them as much as you can, like me. Good night, everybody.
Goodbye.